All right, it says we're live, so hopefully that's working and doing what it's supposed to. Let me give it just a minute to catch up with that delay. There we go. All right, it's working. Hi, Barb. I'm so excited to see her. It's been a while since I've seen you in a live chat, so welcome. I'm gonna turn off. There we go. My subtitles were on, and for some reason that's just really super distracting. So I needed to turn that off so it wasn't in my way. Well, welcome, Barb, and whoever else ends up popping in here. I know that there's some other lives this morning. For a while, I kind of tried to plan around and check who else was going live and make sure I didn't end up at the same time. But there's so many people doing lives now that I just kind of had to go, you know what? I'm just going to do it when it works for me and then do the best we can. And there's always replay, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. And whoever manages to hop in here and join, it's always fun to play and chat. And then in the meantime, it pops something up later for a rewatch. So I'm just kind of rolling with that. So it might be a small group today because I think Lee had mentioned something about, I think it was Gina K maybe going live with scrapbook.com. So if there's not very many people here, then those of us who are here will just enjoy each other's company. So there's Leah. Hi, Leah. I know Leah has to pop out early. She's got an appointment today, but she's going to hang out for a little bit and chat with us. Um, let's see. This is probably my last live for a while. A week from Sunday, we're taking off for a family trip. My daughters and I, we're going to be going to Italy. Super duper excited about that. But between next week of kind of trying to get all the last minute things done that I need to before we leave, then being gone for a couple weeks, and then of course getting back in recovery mode, I have no promises of when exactly my brain will be ready to go live again. So I wanted to squeeze one less in. That's kind of why today I just went, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. The time works. Let's just do it. Um, and then also today I've started the past week or so starting to try and get some pre-recorded videos up on my YouTube channel. I'm hoping I get one or two more of those up before I leave to kind of schedule out. But I do have another one that went live today, um, just a pre-recorded. It's not a super long one, but it's kind of a fun set. I actually, when I decided to go live today, I was going to postpone that one and just have it post next week. And I rescheduled on my blog and my social media. I only forgot to reschedule on YouTube, so it went live this morning anyway. So I just kind of went, not going to worry about it. We'll just leave it on there. So there's going to be two videos up today, one live and one pre-recorded. And I'll grab my cards and maybe show you a little peek of those. Let's see. Barb. Oh, fun. Yes, Italy is definitely worth a stop. We're actually starting in London, have a couple days there just because the flights worked out cheaper, and then a little small flight over to Venice when we start doing Italy. So we're going to get a little bit of a bonus somewhere else. So I'll have to drag you there someday, Leah. I have been there once before and loved it, so I'm excited to take my daughters back and let them experience it. So it's also a bonus right after my oldest daughter graduates from college. A week from today is her last day of classes. So we'll be leaving right after she finishes with her bachelor's degree in graphic design. So it's kind of a graduation trip for her. And then my other daughter only has a year left. So we're kind of celebrating that too. Kind of all of the excuses and whatever reasons we can come up with, right? All right. I'm going to, hello. Okay, let me see if I can say your name right. Huguette? I hope I said that right. Tell me if I said that right. Hello and welcome. I'm so glad that you're here and joining us. And thank you. My daughter is very, very excited to be done with school. She's doing her internship right now, and it's kept her really, really busy. So she's really looking forward to summer and a breather and kind of winding down. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera around, and we'll go ahead and take a look at what I have planned to work on today. All right, so I know I posted it as mixing and matching different florals. So the main part of that is going to be this beautiful, fantastic florals. It's an embossing folder with the cutting die that cuts out a couple of the blooms. And then this Poised Primula. I haven't used this one yet. And I thought the stem on this and the embossed flowers might be kind of a good combination. So we're going to play a little bit with the two of those together. We're also going to do a little masking and stenciling. We might sneak this butterfly on there. I'm not sure if it's going to be too big with the bloom, in which case we might just make 2 cards. We'll get there. But we're going to use the petal tipped labels and this delicate lattice. This has become one of my favorite stencils. It's just such a great background neutral, and I think it's going to pair really fun with that. And then we'll probably pull this out to use at least for a sentiment. This is the flowering frame. So far, I've mostly just used sentiments from this one. Here pretty soon, I'm planning to do something and use the florals a little more. But for now, I really like some of the sentiments on there. So let's go ahead and kind of do some diving in here. I'm going to start off here by getting this done. So I'm going to do this. In the past, I've always embossed the whole folder and then from there moved and die cut out the pieces. But I saw something on the Simon says, I think a little reel or something that went by, and for that they actually die cut first, then ran it through the embossing folder. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit today and try and do it that way for fun. Let's see. We'll just do that way. Let me grab my die cut machine. And I could do this from colored cardstock, but you know I love ink blending, so of course I had to stick with that today. Save. You never know when you might need a scrap of cardstock, so I always save these little bits because they often come in handy. All right. Yes, Montana. I can't wait to visit Leah in Montana. We're working out a plan. Okay, so there are those 2 pieces die cut. Let's set aside the die for the moment. And my die cut machine, because I don't need that for a minute. And then I'm going to pull out, you know, you've got to have so many options for die cut machines. Hello, Leanne. Welcome. So glad that you're here. And Holly Brown. Yay. I feel like the gang's all here. Some of the fun friends that we used to enjoy doing lives with so much. I miss doing those, and I'm trying to get, I know Leah and I talk about this all the time. We're both trying to get a little more consistent on them. It's just hard to fall into a routine completely. So, all right. So now that I have this die cut, I'm just going to look and find the one where it fits in. Let me see. There we go. It's just kind of like a little bit of puzzle piecing just to figure out where it goes in there. So I'm going to use a little tape to hold it in place. And then same thing on this one, just find the big notable spot, makes it easy to line up. So on this one, I looked for like the biggest pokey spot out on the bloom. That's what helped me figure out how that one went. And this one, and then my preferred favorite sandwich for embossing folders is to just run it through in my spellbinders. Of course, use the A and B plate, my embossing folder, and then just the cardboard piece that comes in the packaging for the embossing folders. And usually I spray down when I'm running embossing folder. I have one that I ran through that I did so it could dry. I didn't on these because I didn't want to give it some time, or have to give it time to dry before we ink blend. Okay, now they're in there really good. There we go. Utilize the tape. And I think that did a pretty good job of embossing it. So usually when you dampen the paper a little bit, it just gives you a deeper impression. Helps the paper fibers kind of flex a little bit better. So just for comparison's sake, I don't think I can see a huge difference. That's the one I got wet. This is the new one I ran today. So maybe ever so slightly deeper, but not enough to really be noticeable. So hello, Miriam. Welcome. So glad you could join today. All right, so we've got our initial flower here. Now we're gonna pivot back over to the die cut machine and do a little more die cutting. And granted, I know that is a die cut machine. It's just, I'll fix that's my light there. I like my little one for some of the littler things that I need to do. All right, so I've got this Poised Primula. One thing I forgot to mention, I've got all of the, or the majority of the supplies. You never know, sometimes I pull something out I'm not expecting to. But I have them all linked in the video description. So if there's anything that you are curious about, or I miss showing it very well, you can find all that linked down below there. Okay. So we're just gonna cut, we might do some of the little extra flowers too, but for now I just want to use, oh good, I wasn't sure if I should have grabbed a bubble mailer for this one, but it looks like that die cut quite nicely. All right, and that does look like, as I was hoping, that looks like not a bad size for those blooms. So I think we can roll with that. I kind of like that. I was hoping that that would be a big enough. I kind of played with it a little bit, but I know, isn't that flower dye? That's why I said we might tuck some of those little blooms on there, but we'll come back to that a little later if we decide to do it. Now I'm double thinking, going, should I? No. Nope, I'm going to stick with the current plan and then go back. So, all right, let's die cut a little more here. Is this one? Yes, this will fit on here. That's what I was hoping. I'm going to cut this one. So most of these I'm going to ink blend on to color. I mentioned at the beginning I could have done colored cardstock, but I'm going to just stick with this one. I might wish I did a bubble mailer, but we'll see. Let's go back here just so it gets a little more. Yep, you know what? That one does need a bubble mailer. Stand by for a second. All right, let's get a little piece of that. And then if I have to, I'll grab another. I'm going to see if I can fit it back in there. Get it to die cut well. Let's try that. Oh, good. That was an easy solution there. All right, so we've got that. I'm going to keep another little chunk of that bubble mailer because this next part, I kind of want to blend in that butterfly kind of in the bright orange tones. So I'm going to use a little bit of black cardstock for the details because that kind of makes me think of like, you know, a monarch butterfly or something along those lines. So I'm just going to grab a little piece of this, leave the rest in the package. Get that out of the way. Figuring all these details, that bubble mailer is going to just be helpful. Sometimes you need it and sometimes you don't. All right, those look like they die cut beautifully. I'm just going to leave them sitting in there for now and not pop all the little pieces out because I can get to that in a few minutes. And then I think the last die cutting that I want to do on this, other than sentiment, and we'll figure that out later, is going to be to use this. So I mentioned I want to use, let's move some of this out of the way. I want to use these two together. Now the way I want to do it is I want to make a one layer kind of background. So I've got my card base and I want this stenciling directly on my card base, but I want it in the shape of one of these. So I want to create a mask so that my stenciling only ends up where I want it. So let's see, I think I kind of like that size. I think that's a good size. So what I've done is I have a piece of acetate. This is just Simon Says clear acetate. And I cut it bigger than my A2 card front because I want to use it to create my own stencil. And doing it from acetate will allow me to reuse it multiple times. Now to get it centered easily, I'm going to put that acetate over my card and then kind of just center that on there. So it's right in the middle. Let's hold that in place. And then I'm going to run this through my bigger die cut machine. I just got the Anna Griffin Empress and I'm still figuring it out, but I really like it so far. All right, I'll be right back. All right, let's get that out of there. All right, the bonus is now I also have this piece that I can use as a reverse mask too. So let's say I want to tape it in place and do, in fact, you know what, as I'm thinking about it, because I'm really thinking this butterfly is going to need to go on a different card. So maybe we'll do one card base each way with that stencil and kind of get the way it's going to look the two different ways. I kind of like that idea. All right, I think I'm going to start with the background on both of these. So let's get our two card bases. And then we'll move on to ink blending those pieces. So hopefully you can kind of see where this is. I know the acetate's clear, so it's probably a little bit invisible. Holly, I know I am really loving the way that it cuts. I had to take the shim out on some things because it was cutting a little too well, which I suppose is a good problem to have. But yeah, it cut beautifully through that. So like I said, so far I'm pretty much liking it. I'm just learning something new. When you've used one thing for so long, there's all the little quirks to figure out. But all right, and I'm just throwing a little Post-it tape on the back of that so I can center that on there. And we'll create the little reverse section on there. All right, and then that delicate lattice. And it's been so long since I die cut acetate. You could totally do this from just plain cardstock too. I didn't have to do it from the acetate, but I just kind of decided to roll with that idea. So if it's easier, you can cut it from just cardstock if you don't have a die cut machine that handles the acetate well. But maybe I'm selling the Empress now. Oh, I don't know, Holly. This is just the Simon Says. That's really interesting. I didn't realize you had an Empress too. That makes it a little more interesting. All right, we are going to, let's see, I need to make sure I get that stencil held down really well. So I think I'm gonna really tape this well because I don't want that stencil to move on me. And with all of the layers and the acetate, there we go, that should hold well. All right, let me pull out my ink stand. And you know what I forgot actually before I put this on here? I forgot what I wanted to do. I want to do it in 2 layers. So first, I want to do my softer color and just do a little bit of a soft background and then put the stencil over the top. That way I'll get 2 layers and it'll give me a little bit of a softer effect is my goal. So I'm starting off with Lemonade. I kind of went really bright, happy. I tend to go often more pastels, I feel like. And so today I'm going a little more bold. And I did that the other day as well. Okay, while this is taped in place, I'm also going to do that softer ink color a little bit there on the background, coming out from the center of that frame where we've added it on there. Just giving that slightly soft background color so when I stencil it's not such a stark contrast. Okay, here we go. All right, set that one aside and we'll deal with that one in a minute. And then let's grab our next color of ink. This one I'm going to do Sunbeam. All All right, and then we're going to go back and let's once again put our stencil on. And I'm kind of trying to find a spot to line up, not that you have to, but the stencil design, I'm trying to kind of grab like two of the little tops and center them in the shape of that frame, if that makes sense. So that, let me hold it up a little closer. So like where those little center parts come together, then I make sure my design is straight up and down and not crooked. I don't know if that makes sense. And I just stuck my finger in my ink. All right, and let's add in now a little second layer of color. This one I'm gonna blend a little bolder and a little deeper. It's been like sunny and beautiful. We've had a couple of little rainy days, but not much. And so I think this sunny yellow happy color just was calling to me today. So, all right, very carefully. Oh, okay. We're just gonna go all the way and do the full reveal on this one because I wanna see how fun is that? Oh, and you know what, as I said that, I just did that, but I wanted to add some splatters before I move on. I totally forgot that little step, so we'll just pop that back in. If it's not perfectly aligned, it doesn't matter. So let's set that aside. Hold your horses, Heather. Don't get ahead of yourself. And then let's add a little bit of tape again on the back of this to hold it in place. And then same thing, kind of try to line up that stencil so you make sure it's square and even. Although this time I need to move that center tape to tape into the middle because I want it to move while I'm stenciling that part. Okay, I'm going to use this to kind of help hold it in place too, just so that I don't move my stencil too much. And you know what? That's another trick that I saw recently. Using like a towel or a paper towel so you don't get your fingers dirty and you can hold it in place, because I always hold on. I mean, you can see I already have ink all over my fingers. I saw, oops, although it helps if you actually hold it in place. Sherry Carroll did it for the last Simon Says free class that they did with their virtual class kits. And I just thought that was a really smart way to do it. She used paper towel, but since I have my microfiber and I don't currently have the other, I'm making do with it that way. All right. And you can kind of see this because the acetate is behind. I honestly don't know which one I like better, the reverse or the original one. So I'm glad I tried both ways because I wouldn't have necessarily thought of that off the top of my head. All right, but let's add our little bit of splatters here. So pull out, keep a Simon Says card kit box handy for such times as this. And I have this new, I want to try this out. Splatters are always messy, so bear with me, but this is Picket Fence paper splatter. I've got a couple of my like, but this one is called Liquid Cinderella Shoes, and I used a tiny bit of it, and it is intense sparkle and very opaque, which I love. So let's give it a try and see how it goes. Let me get a little thing of water ready to clean my brush afterwards because I don't want this forever to live in my brush. And let's put a little bit of, just going to kind of swish it around, make sure it's mixed. Put a little bit there. Look at how sparkly that is. Oh my goodness. Like I didn't put any like splattered on. I kind of tried to like tap it onto something with my finger. And it took a lot for me to actually clean all that sparkle off of my fingers. So I can definitely tell this is beautiful sparkle, and we'll probably pull it out and put a little more on our, maybe splatter it on our die cuts once we ink blend those. So, all right, I'm going to clean this off, and then we'll just set this aside. See, look at how hard it is to get that. You know it's a good sparkle. Rubbing alcohol will get that off though, That's how I did it last time. So at least you know it's not going anywhere once it's on there. So move that box. I'll keep that handy to pull back out at the end. And then let's carefully pull the acetate mask off. I can clean that later. Look at how pretty that is. That sparkle is just magical. All right, so there's our one version. I tell you what, guys, I feel like I should either just start doing a live or a pre-recorded video every time I make a card, because I feel like those lately have been turning out to be my very favorites. There's like the magic of the recording or streaming that just, I don't know, I get brave and I try new things and then I end up loving how they turn out. So there's our 2 ways on that with the same one thing, which is amazing. And then let me just do a quick little clean there. Any spots? All right, move this out of the way. We'll just let these dry. And then it's time to do a little bit of ink blending and layering of these. So where's it? There it is. Pull this out. My little crafty mat. This is the, I think this one is the 7 by 10, pretty sure. Yeah, or no, it's a little bit bigger. Yeah, no, something like that. Anyway, it comes in all different sizes, so it really doesn't matter. They're all kind of the same, just different sizes, but they're great for ink blending little die cut pieces, which just makes it really easy to go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna start with, I don't know which of these flowers I'm gonna use, so I'm gonna ink blend them both. Ink stand back out. Isn't that sparkle amazing? I'm kind of surprised by how beautiful that came out. Okay, use my littler brushes for this. And we're just gonna, and I love that as you ink blend, it kind of pushes it down onto that mat, so it holds it in place really well. And like I said, I'm feeling the bold colors today, so we're gonna just come in pretty deep with the color. That's why I chose a pretty dark color. I'm not going for soft and dainty. I'm going for kind of that bold, bold look, but leaving it a little, you know, keeping some depth in the center so it's a little lighter as you go in there. All right, that one's easy. That worked out well. So those flowers are done. Let's move that out of the way. And then next up, we'll try to pull those off. Like I said, we'll probably add some splatters to these at the end too. I notice a tiny bit of rubbing alcohol does a really good job of cleaning this grit mat off without ruining the sticky. And then let's do the greenery piece there. I'm using Fairway for this one. Same idea, nice and bold. I don't need to worry about keeping it super dainty and soft, although I will keep a little variation in the leaves there. So definitely keeping it really deep at the bottom and then a little softer towards the top. Not massively, but hopefully you can kind of see that. All these little pieces are going to come together so quickly. All right, and then you could probably use a damp cloth to clean these off too, but so far this has not caused any problems. All right, let's do that butterfly. And I've got 2 shades of orange. So I'm going to start with Cantaloupe and then, there we go, come in at the center with Sherbet for a little bit of a deeper, actually, you know what, as I said that, I think maybe I'll do the deeper on the outside because that's going to be where the black is going to layer over. So I think I might actually make the deeper color out there. So just getting a good solid base on there of the cantaloupe. Yes, adding ink totally changes. That's 100% true, Miriam. All right. And I just saw, I don't think I saw when you popped in before, Minky Doodad. That's a cute screen name. Welcome. And yes, I agree, that sparkle. All right, coming in really deep here on this outer part because I just want these to totally pop. I can't wait to put some sparkle on these now too. This is kind of getting me excited about that idea. Okay. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think if we're going to add that sparkle, I kind of want to do it before I put those. Ooh, although not that it matters much. There's a little bit of the sparkle. It's not going to be the end of the world, but it does have a little bit of sparkle on there. So let's get all these little pieces. So bold. I just love all that color. Apparently, maybe it's just like a summer thing. I'm loving the bright, summery, bold colors. I don't know. Something about it's just making me happy. All right, let's put this away for the moment. And then I'm going to pull that box back out again. Put all of these little pieces in here. Again, I'll hide that black a little more just so it doesn't get. In fact, one of the best spots is to put it behind the box. A lot of times when I do the splatters like this, just because I hate making a mess of my desk, a lot of times I'll sit on the floor and do it. That doesn't work very well for a live like this, so I'm just kind of handling the mess it's going to make. But let's see, fix my aim a little there. We might need some more of these on there. Let's add a little more of that splatter. I don't want to waste it, so I'm trying to be a little sparing with it. There we go. Get a good little dose on there of the sparkle. That's looking more like, okay, we still need a tiny bit more. It's so hard to get the aim right on those little pieces. I probably could scooch them closer together, but I don't want to go too crazy. But can you really ever have too much sparkle? I feel like all of this sparkle on these is like, it's like I'm putting diamonds on those, like little tiny shards of diamond. They're so sparkly. I can't even tell you guys how. Okay, let's pull them all out. Okay, get that box out of the way. I'm going to quickly clean this off just so it's, oh, something happened with the white balance. Hold on, let's get something in there. Is it just me or did it just go really wonky all of a sudden? Here, there we go. Let's get my hand in there. Maybe that'll fix it. Just felt like it went, at least on my screen, it went really blue all of a sudden. Okay, that did good enough on that. So I'm happy with that for the moment. Maybe it was just me. Leah, you know what? Today is, I bought it, but I've had it almost a month and today is the first time I used it. So I think I enabled myself if I hadn't bought it to get it. So didn't intend to just like go crazy on you enable, but I would have enabled myself on that one. Just as soon as I tried it, I was like, okay, I'm sold. You convinced me. All right, I'm gonna pop all these little extra pieces off of there. We're gonna get these assembled and then decide how we want to lay these out. And of course, you know we're going to add more sparkle because, like I just said, you can't have too much sparkle in your life. There's no such thing. In for a, what's that? In for a, now I can't remember the saying. I shouldn't have even started that saying. In for a dollar, in for a, whatever. Basically, if you're going to do a little, you might as well do a lot. Maybe someone knows that saying. Yeah, the splatter box. I think you're right. Okay, let's get all of these little pieces glued on. I think this is going to be a job for some tweezers and some detail glue. Although now, isn't it back to blue again? What in the world? There we go. Maybe it's like, remember before where we had a different color and it just threw off? I also suspect my camera is starting to kind of die on me. Lately, every time I plug in my overhead camera, I have to restart my computer because it doesn't like me. So there's probably something coming down the line of a new video camera, so I'll be researching that here soon. Probably not before vacation, but all right. Just gonna slowly get these set in place without making a mess if possible. That's why I do the liquid glue like I do, is there's, whoops, well that was supposed to stay on there. There we go. Clean the glue off the desk in a minute. All right, another little dot of glue on everything. All right. This is the tedious in for a penny, in for a pound. I think that's the saying I was thinking of. I think that that's correct. Which is funny because it always makes me think, because here in the US, I mean in the UK, the pound is a currency. So in for a penny, in for a pound. Here, a pound is a weight measurement. So it sounds like you're comparing two different things. So it always kind of throws me for a little bit of a loop here. I think that's why I have trouble remembering it. And as soon as I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember. So I think that's where that saying originated, but correct me if I'm wrong. All right, little dots of glue on there. Pick it up and get it a little more centered in place. All right. Oh my goodness, that butterfly is lovely. Okay, we're gonna put the two pieces together with this little guy now. Because that's gonna need a few minutes to sit and dry. Okay, I think we're level. All right, I'm gonna set that one aside. We'll let that dry so he's ready to go wherever we decide to put him. Bye, Leah. Leah has to head for an appointment, so she's off and out of here. But thank you for joining us for a while. All right, color seems like it's still all happier. Let's pull in our two little frame pieces that we have. So now I got to decide, do we want, I think I'm liking the flower is going to be kind of perfect over on this one with the window. I'm still deciding, but I think it just pops better there. And I think the butterfly, once she dries, yeah, is going to go great on there. So we're going to have one extra of the flowers because I don't think I'm going to try, I think fitting them both on here would be, I don't know, a little crowded with that one stem, unless we did another stem, but I don't really, I don't know. It's not like we couldn't, but I think I like it better with just the one. So I think I'll just stick with that and we'll call that good today. A little bit of me is like, I could have made that a little bit bigger, but I'm not gonna worry about that. So let's talk about some sentiments real quick. And that is going to be, because again, originally I thought I was gonna just put the butterfly, but I think that looks a little crowded on there. So I think I actually like it as a pair. Put otherwise, I don't know if, no, I think that'll just be an extra that'll be for something else. All right, so let's decide. Ooh, I kind of like the thank you. That'll kind of tuck in there or go up, do a bigger one. Kind of like that thank you. I feel like that nestles in there really well. And then this one, put that up there, we can get a bigger, maybe the thinking of you. I love that blue too. I think that one's a really pretty. Thank you off of there as well. All right, my initial thought here, as these continue to just dry and do their thing, was to heat emboss these sentiments in white on some black cardstock. So I might pull out a little more of that same super black cardstock that we already used. Obviously not that big of a piece of it because sentiments aren't that big. Just do that should work. I don't need to waste too much, and that's a good way to use up that scrap. And there's plenty to hold it in place. And of course we'll die cut these out, so it doesn't really matter how I stick them in there. But one of the ways I found lately that I really like, first of all, we're going to go really good on there with powder tool. And don't worry, that'll all clean off just fine, so we're not worried about that. But I really like heat embossing in white by first stamping in white ink and then coming over with the white embossing powder. I did forget to pull out. I should have planned it out a little better. There we go. Get my, oh no, wait, never mind. I just said I was gonna, goodness, Heather, the brain. I was like, I need embossing ink. I'm heat embossing. Never mind. I just said I was going to use the white. So Calico White. This is from Pink Fresh, the little cube there, just because it's handy. It's very juicy. Most white ink is, I found. So I'm going to go really sparingly on how much I add there. And then just stamp lightly. And then I'm going to stamp again. The white also gives you the benefit of being able to see where you've stamped a little better than maybe you could with the clear embossing ink. Hopefully it works as well as I'm hoping today in the past. All right, one more time. Stamping really gently because I don't want to lose the detail of these really pretty scripty fonts. Okay, I think that's good. Clean that off in just a minute. For the moment, I'm going to add a little bit of white embossing powder and then heat set this real quick. It looks like we're getting a good dose of powder on there, so I think we got it pretty good. Thank goodness. All right. I always seem to have sticky, inky fingers, so try and be careful where it adheres there, but let's just kind of brush some of that. I'll have to clean the embossing powder off my desk because it kind of makes me a little crazy, but just brush off any extra that I can see at a quick glance. Of course, I am going to die cut these, so a lot of that's not going to matter anyway. And then grab my heat gun. That worked great. Okay, then once that dries for a second, because I don't want to smudge that, then I can carefully grab my clean microfiber and just buff off that extra powder. Oops, well, I went a little too hard on that, so I might have not waited long enough. I wonder if I can fix that now. I don't know, I might have gone a little too late on that. Let's see if we can. Just didn't wait long enough for it to dry. Let's see if that'll heat set back on. That was lucky. Look at that. It was still damp enough to adhere back on. So, whew. Okay, I should have waited a second longer. I got a little ahead of myself. Okay, finished buffing off the powder over here. Just make sure it's a clean spot on your microfiber so that you don't wipe off or wipe any ink or anything onto that white embossing. But there we go. Let's get the dies, die cut those. and then we can finish assembly. And you know what? These are so new that I haven't even die cut all the word dies apart. Whoops. All right, let's see which one we need, because I didn't realize I hadn't even gotten, that looks like the thank you. So let's get that one out of there. I think I've only used a sentiment that didn't require a die cut so far. Nope. Maybe it is that one. Nope. Oh yes, it is that one. Okay. Just don't want to have to cut any more apart than I need to right now. I can do this later. You guys don't need to sit and watch me snip dies apart. Okay. Put that back behind there. All right. This is where my little die cut machine comes out again. And trim these apart so they'll fit in said die cut machine. And let's tape them in place and run these through real quick. Carefully lining them up. And you know what? I think I grabbed the wrong one on that. I thought I had the right thank you on that, but I think it was very close to a different one. Nope, miss you. Thank you. There we go. Well, I've got a bonus one cut apart. Sometimes it's tricky to tell which one's which. But usually I have them all die cut out well in advance. But I know that the new ones from Simon Says are starting to transfer over to detabbed, so you won't have to worry about cutting them apart like that too. So that'll help. Here's my little pieces of tape I already had. That matches up so much better when you get the right one. Funny how that works. Oh, also helps if you keep the tape stuck down in place. All right, I'm just going to do these one at a time. These are also a good size to use foam strips to attach them. A lot of times I'll cut bonus layers, but I think these have a good size, so I can get away with just using foam strips to pop them up a little, because you know we need that little bit of dimension, of course. Okay, put those away later. There's going to be some crafter math to clean up after today, but that's okay. I think that butterfly is just going to pop up at a fun little, actually we might put it lower. Let's see. Some kind of a fun little angle. I think that actually works pretty good. And then the thank you will snuggle right in there. Okay, so I'm going to use foam to put the flower on. And then the butterfly, I think I'm just going to, what do I want to do there? Usually I would just use some liquid glue in this. Yeah, I think that's all we need to do there. And then the little greenery portion here, I think we'll stick that on. Yes, I'm going to do a little bit of liquid glue and adhere that on so that the top of the stem kind of pops up with the flower as well. So let's see if we can get that kind of centered where we want it. And then I can put the foam tape, there it is. It's like, where did I put my scissors? Right over the top of that, and that way it'll hold the whole thing up. And then the base of the stem there, I'm just going to adhere that directly down for simplicity, because I don't think we need any more than that. So then we can use foam on the sentiments, and that will wrap that all up quite nicely. Let's get a little bit of glue off of there. That way it adds a little bit of multiple dimension. Okay, a little bit at the base of that and the base of that, and then a little liquid glue on here just because it'll give me wiggle room to place it exactly where I want it. Leave those stems curving up a little bit for dimension, and then we'll pop that on in a second, but let's get our, I'm going to be really nice and generous there with the liquid glue in the center. Okay, and let that dry, and then I'm going to pull out some foam strips to get our sentiments popped on, and then it's just a little bit of bling to add at the end, and we'll be done. And I peeled the backing off of the foam tape because when I'm doing the little bitty pieces like this, I'd way rather do that in advance than have to peel off of a bunch of little separate ones, if that makes sense. Then I can just trim them down and pop them into place. So a little simple trick that makes my life easier, I feel like. So all right, pop that thank you in there. Move on to the thinking of you. Use up all the scraps there too. That's a great way to use these up. Okay, and I shouldn't need too much more, so more at the top there. Oh, stop sticking to my fingers. Okay, and that one is ready to add right under there as well. Okay, and then of course I have options for the bling. Let's get all of the little dust pieces off there. Do you see it? Look at all that sparkle on there. So fun. All right, then let's see what colors. I pulled out some different dazzling gems. Now that I've got that rainbowy sparkle, I'm kind of leaning towards, I think I'm gonna like the, it's called Prism. It's kind of an iridescent clear, but I feel like that might be the one I want on there. I did originally also pull out some colors in case I wanted, but as I'm looking at it, I really think probably just delete those extras off and stick with this and put a good little touch of these on here. Also, as I'm looking at this, I often like to round some corners. I think this is just calling for a rounded corner up here. And then this one, maybe a couple rounded corners. I think one there. Well, let's see. Actually, maybe that's enough. I was debating on opposite corners, but I think I kind of just like that one. Sometimes you have to do the one and see what you think before you commit and put the next one on there. All right, let's pop a couple little gems. Yeah, these sparklies are the perfect choice. So I can see I need some more of these because this is definitely a favorite that I use quite a bit. So I'm running low on the larger size. So but that's actually a good number there. And I can use, I think those are my last two of the big ones. So I might just enjoy those on this card. And then my next order, I'll grab, oops, where did you go? I lost a little one there, but I think it's under the butterfly and I don't want to mess up my gems, so I'll grab that in just a minute. Go for that uneven numbers kind of idea. Duck the two of those together, and then I think that's working. Let me glue those down and then make sure that there's nothing else that these cards need. I'm debating on a little bit of twine, but I think I might leave that alone. That might be something I add later to fiddle with, but sometimes a little twine is a fun addition, so. Get that on there. Okay, these ones up here. All right, at least now we can pick them up and look at them. If I add some twine, the first one that's coming to mind with all the sparkle on these is this iridescent white cord from the last Simon release. And I'm kind of, this one I think needs a bow at the top, so we might add, we got 4 minutes, right? That's enough time to tie a bow on, don't you think? Wrap around a few times. Should go over in this corner probably. Let's see, I need one more wrap there. Let's get this on there. So add that odd numbers of 3s, and then we'll see. I don't know if this one needs it, but at least this one I'm liking the idea up there. It feels like it kind of fills that corner a little bit better. So separate those out. A lot of times I like to do this and just kind of wrap it around the card front directly. If you have a panel on here, you can do it around that, but sometimes it just works really well on here like this. Yes, there we go. I'll fix the ends a little bit more because when you want those to go a certain way, you kind of just have to twist them a little. And then I found sometimes that that kind of makes them curl back around the way that you want them to go. You know, it's like curly hair, it has a mind of its own, but worth it for that pretty sparkle. Okay, that is perfect at the top there. Like I said, I really don't know if I'm feeling it on this one. I feel like, I mean, we could tie it around the bottom there, but there's that missing one. Put that one away. Can't waste any of those. So I might just leave this one plain. This one's a little more, it's got a little more the black on it, so it's already got a little more of a pop, and this one was a little bit softer. So closer look there, showing off the sparkle. And then that way, making our own stencil, double layer stencil 2 ways. But like I said, I think I like this one just as is. I don't think I'm gonna add the extra on there. But that one needed it. That was a good decision there. All right, I'm going to switch the camera around and take this time to say goodbye. Just a little bit here. Oops, excuse my hand there. My light fell, and so it got a little bit tweaked there on the. All right, let me just double check. Does anyone have any questions before I wrap this up? Thank you, everybody. I'm glad you enjoyed. There's always the fun of doing a live of sometimes you're just like, I hope it comes out how I think in my head. A little bit wild, just trying to kind of visualize and then go for it. But I like how those came out. I love those really bright, happy colors. Obviously, I put to use several things that I hadn't used yet from this release. The stencil was one of my favorites in that die, but the embossing folder, that little floral die, the butterfly, the set from the sentiments. I'd already used a sentiment, but not much. So that was fun to kind of combine a lot of the new release together. So as I mentioned before, I do have another pre-recorded video live on my channel that popped up today. It's a little bit shorter than a live, so less of a commitment. You can kind of skip through. So I'd love if you check that out. I also really appreciate if you hit the thumbs up on this and that video. I'm kind of trying to slowly build my channel a little bit again. It's been long neglected, so thank you everyone who joined me today. If you're watching on rewatch, thank you for joining as well. Pop any questions you have in the comments if you're on rewatch, and I try and keep an eye on those and check those, so I'm always happy to get those. I'll update the link list on this with the things I didn't use and then the 1 or 2 things that I did add and use. And then I'll have this card or these 2 cards posted really shortly, probably within a few days. And then hopefully I'll have another video or two while I'm live. I mentioned at the beginning that a week from this Sunday, I'm leaving on a trip with my two daughters for a couple weeks. We're going to Italy. Super duper excited, but it's going to be a little while before I probably have time and a chance to do a live again. So I wanted to squeeze one in today. If all goes well, I should hopefully have another video or two up. If not, I'll just work on it again when I get back home. But I hope everyone has a lovely rest of your day and a great weekend. Thank you for joining me. It was great to see some familiar faces in here. And I enjoyed chatting and crafting with you. Have a great day, and I will see you guys again soon.